Easy E, how are we?
Shawnee.
It doesn't matter how you are because we've Rachael back on the podcast. Rachael, how are we?
Hello, guys. Good to be back.
Rachael, we are going to get into everything about you being the World Championships for the Ironman. And right after the intro music, beforehand, I'm actually going to get back to the lad I just cut off there because, Eric, it is your birthday week, but more important than your birthday week, it is Dublin Half Marathon week. How you set for half marathon and any tips you want to throw out to people that are also doing a half marathon, maybe their first half marathon leading towards the full in 5-6 weeks time for the big one.
Yeah, like what a way to treat myself for my birthday. I signed up for a half marathon, you know. So it's a nice little treat for myself. How am I fixed? I don't know, because usually with half marathons, it's all about PBs, it's all about times. As in, do I know I'm going to cross the finish line? Absolutely. But at what pace and at what pride do I cross that said finish line is part of the other question. But it's looking forward to it. For me, it's a training day again. So this will lead into a heavy training Sunday. So do the half marathon, and then into a heavy training day on the Sunday with another half marathon plus a long cycle. So it's part of a bigger picture weekend, but it's, I'm really looking forward to it. Any advice I could give to people is it is only a half. So maybe aim for that marathon pace, maybe a little bit quicker, see how you fare out. It is an opportunity to make a couple of mistakes and to see how you manage your pace. For some, it's going to be the first time you're going to be involved in a crowd. And see how you fare out over the first K or two as well. So yeah, there's plenty of ways to tackle this one. If people just want to survive, just stick at the pace you know that you'll survive and get around. Don't be afraid to walk and run as well if needs be, just to make sure you get over the finish line. Again, it is a training day for everyone. Some are going for their PBs, but all in all, most people are using this as an aim for the Dublin Marathon.
I suppose if you're in that crowd to start, the one thing I've always talked about in the podcast is it's very easy to get lost in that crowd and think you're going at your own pace. You look down the watch, you realize I'm going a good 20, 30, sometimes even 40 seconds faster than that pace. And just to pull yourself back at the start and then build yourself up over the 21K instead of going straight into it. Rachael, any tips on just the half marathon? Because before you did triathlons and jumped to the World Championships, you were primarily a runner.
I was, but I only did my first half marathon race outside of triathlon last May.
You're about to make us feel really bad over the next 50 minutes, Rachael. I'm glad you started well like that. You know what? I think we'll just hit the intro music and just go straight into this week's episode of the podcast. Let's go. Eric, how much running have you done in the last week?
Excluding trips to the Twin.
I don't know. It's kind of all a blur.
You've done a bit of running though, right?
35K, and then as we record this, then there's a 90-minute run ahead of me today as well. So yeah, it'll be about 45, 50K this week before the weekend. So maybe 70K.
Well, I don't know. I did 10K in the last week or so. So and Rachel's done no running. So we've done more running than Rachel. Just have that on our back before we get into your insane world Ironman 70.3. Rachael, first of all, how are you feeling after? And then we'll get into the training and all beforehand.
Good. I think I recovered well. Definitely recovered quicker after that one than the previous long distance ones I've done. So I think that's progress in the right direction. Shows my body is adjusting to the load. And yeah, I think when you enjoy something, though, it's easy to recover from it as well.
So you're training at an incredibly high level now. And I suppose myself, Eric, growing up and all, you'd be envious of athletes or like people that actors look really well in movies and like, oh, well, if we had the time all day to do that, if we had nutritionists, we'd look in the same shape and stuff like that. But you're working the full-time job. You're building yourself up to triathlon. Your volume's insane. What is the difference getting to that level of doing world championships? Is it literally just, I need to put the volume in? Is it smarter training? What was the key differences to get to where you're at right now? Because one of us will have numbers in a second. Like you had in your age category, what you did at that level was absolutely phenomenal. I think you were in the top 20 for age. Am I right saying that?
Thank you. Yeah, I finished 19th in my age category.
In the World Championships, not just like down in like the local country one. In the world, you finished like in the top 20. Like, so you're an insane level of fitness. Like, so how was your training leading up to that, and how different would it be to like just training in general for it? Is it just a lot more volume, or what would be the main key you would say to people to build up towards where you're at right now?
I think, like you said, if you have all day to do something, it's easy. I don't have all day. I have a full-time job like every other person. So volume is not really the best way to go. Obviously, when you're doing endurance, like anyone doing endurance knows, you need to get out for like long runs, long cycles. But the truth is, I just don't have the time most days during the week. So it is that smarter. How can I train smarter? How can I hit my key targets without doing so much that I'm not able to function in work, and then I'm not recovering enough while still getting nutrition in? So I'd say the key is just good time management. Forget about everything else. I think you need to have pretty decent time management skills to get up to that sort of level.
Well, it's and commitment to consistency, I'd add in there as well, Rachael, because looking at a lot of your training, like consistently training in the morning, consistently training in the evening. So, and you do kind of like I'm speaking from a different perspective, but just watching it is like when you're going to a world championship, that became the priority, although you still have to go to work, you still have to do everything. The other stuff in the world kind of took a back seat because it was like, no, training is the priority, then it's the cinema, then it is a big factor in your life, almost like your second job.
Yeah, and you kind of have to treat it like that as well, without losing, I suppose, the fun and the enjoyment. If you want to get to that level, you do have to make certain sacrifices, and it's not for everybody. And I absolutely would not force somebody to do it if they didn't enjoy it. But if you love it as much as I love it, you just get on with it. You just, like you said, I know that to do that, I need to be consistent, especially when I don't have the time to put in massive volume. I just know that I have to do something morning and evening, majority of days in the week. And it's just doing that week after week after week. And, for someone like me, I don't see it as a chore. I just see it as something that I want to do and that I get to do, instead of something that I have to do. Like, nobody is pressuring me to do it.
So you set yourself up, so like you kind of had to do that to get to where you were to even qualify for the World Championships. So you won was it Western Australia 70.3 in your age category? Yeah. So you came first in that. And then all of a sudden you qualified for the World Championships. So you look at where you were from there to the World Championships. Looking back on to top your race, you're number one. You finished number one. How did you look at your training for that and go, where's the keys of improvement? What you need to focus on to get from there to the World Championships? Did you have an idea what you need to do? Did you just need to continue building on that? What was your approach from that starting point?
I think that kind of set me up in terms of structure.
Right.
Because I wasn't training as much as I was, say, after that race leading up to Worlds. I definitely upped the amount I was doing, but that laid the foundation, and it was really useful for showing me where I could make gains, sort of how much time I needed to dedicate, like what way to split, because just because there's 3 sports doesn't mean you split them all equally. So that was something that I kind of learned in that time, what way I needed to split it up.
Were you looking at where to get those gains in like, were you looking at what maybe last year's World Championships were compared to where you were now and going, where are you behind? Or like how did you see a baseline of where you should be for swimming and cycling? I know you're elite running. Were you like, the running's there, I need to up my swimming and cycling number, or my cycling and swim numbers compared to others? Where you compare yourself to others this stage and where you need to be? Because it's hard to go from one race being at the very top going, well, I was top of everything, or were you in the middle of that other race and were you like third or fourth in the swim, or did you find people were catching the bike, you need to catch them in the run afterwards? Or how did you judge and where you need to get your numbers up on?
I guess there's so many 70.3s around that there's always someone you compare yourself to. And, you know, I suppose racing locally helped as well, but there wasn't that many long distance races. Like World Champs was only my second 70.3. So from qualifying to Worlds, I didn't even have the option to race that distance again. So I think you do have to look at other people who are doing this event at your level without getting too consumed by it or too fixated on what other people are doing.
Yeah, I suppose it makes sense to have a benchmark. So, and to bring it back down to average Joe level for me and Sean, when I said, right, I'm going to be average. And Sean went on to the results from last year and went, all right, well, average did this cycle and average did this swim and average did this run. And it is a benchmark. But obviously for you, Rachel, it's on a different level because you have the ability to set your sights on that a little bit higher. Like, I wish I had that ability to set my sights on something that higher. But it's absolutely phenomenal when you're able to just set that target and go, right, this is now what I have to do to try and get there. And in fairness to you, it's always to try and get there. You're never saying, you know, I must be as quick as this one. It's always, well, if I can do this, I'll give myself a chance. And it's really good. And only for your second race as well. I had the privilege of watching the whole thing. I had a great day, but I didn't have to do anything. But it was absolutely amazing. And in terms of the consistency as well, Rachel, you've showed me a great image from your Strava. I don't know, is that from the paid account on Strava?
I think it's now the paid account, but when I first joined Strava, I didn't pay for it, and I think that feature was part of it.
That's the fitness level, is it?
So the fitness level score.
Yeah, that's paid now. Yeah,
level.
The fitness score. Yeah, it used to be free, the fitness score, but now it is paid. I'm regret asking this question. What is the fitness score? Like, why you something the graph?
I have not checked since after the race. So let me.
But it is the coolest
right now. It has dropped.
It's the coolest graph I have ever seen. So obviously Rachel built herself up to be at a peak fitness to win the Western Australia, and from there the fitness score climbs and climbs and climbs to the World Championships.
Oh wow,
it's absolutely terrifying. It's probably something we'll share in one of the pictures in the lead up.
Yeah, sure.
You can see now here. Can you see the decline since World Championships?
142. Only getting back in the run a couple weeks ago. I think mine was at 20. No, it was like 13 or 14. It dropped that much. Like, wow. Can you scroll to see what that was there at the Western Australia?
Yes, I can. At Western Australian 70.3, it was 83.
So at your peak fitness, then you're at 83.
95.
95, and it climbed to 143 for your Ironman. Yeah, you can see the graph. That is class. So
cool, isn't it?
We're visual for a podcast, but you just see it climbing, just that consistency add on. Because if you miss a couple of days in that does drop. That does waver a lot. Because I do look at it on mine just because. Actually, I'm not bringing mine into the conversation for this.
Like I haven't. So I haven't trained since. It's been it's 3 weeks tomorrow since the race. And I haven't trained with any sort of consistency. Like my Strava is empty. And I have been doing other things like just casual cycling, a bit of swimming. But with not recording it, I have gone from that about 142, 43 down to 88.
Wow.
So, but that again, I don't wear my watch all the time. So that is purely heart rate data based off activities. And like I said, that's not even taking into account that would be a massive drop if I had actually done nothing for 3 weeks. But I just don't analyze it enough to start recording all of my casual cycles or my casual swims.
How much in the lead up to training did you use the fitness score, or even like recovery, like a Garmin or whatever you have now would be like, oh, you should rest day today and stuff like that? Did you use that at all in your training, or was it like this is how I feel, this is how I think the session went, rather than, like, for example, if I go for a run and I know I'm more at the same level, like this run might say, hey, I was productive today, or hey, you overreached, or hey, that wasn't enough, or you're under training, or you're in recovery zones. Did that come into training at all, or did you just have a set training plan? I was like, I'm sticking to this unless I physically feel like I can't, or like if you wake up and your body score is like only 50 or 60, you're like, oh, I need a rest day today, or was it just all pen and paper?
Mostly pen and paper. We have a whiteboard that on a Sunday would sit down and we would plan out my training for the week. And again, we'd plan it out based on what else I had going on. So if I knew I had a really early start, or if I knew I was doing something in the evenings, we'd have to plan it around that. But because I don't wear a watch all the time, and because I use different, I use my watch for running and swimming, but then I use a Wahoo with a heart rate monitor for the cycling. There's no one thing that's gathering all my data.
Okay.
So that's why I kind of liked Strava, in that it was gathering the thing from the two different places in one. And I didn't fixate on it because, like, a few years ago, I wore a Whoop. I think we might have talked about that in a past episode. And it's so easy to get fixated on it. But I just like listening to my body. And I've been doing this long enough to know when I'm emotionally fatigued versus physically fatigued. And sometimes when you're emotionally fatigued and you don't want to do anything, the best thing you can do is some physical exercise and try and bring that physical fatigue up. So it's just a lot of, like, when you do it for long enough and you're in tune with your body and what's going on, you do start understanding it a bit more and knowing when you need those days off and when you don't. Like, I think there was 1 month where I unintentionally took no days off.
Yeah, July.
I think that might have been
July when
I think
you
it was
sent me a
July.
message. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the month of July, and I didn't take a single complete rest day. But there were days where there was a few in a row that was just easy swimming.
And
So I
looking
knew
back
that
on
I
that,
didn't need, I knew I didn't need any real intense stuff, but still just something just to keep me going. And like, that wasn't planned. That's just how it worked out. I realized I got to the end of the month and I was like, oh, right, it's actually been quite a while since I've taken a complete rest day. But
and
then
did
the
you
month
look at?
before, oh, sorry.
So I was gonna say, did you look back at the end of the month going, I should have taken a rest day? I was like, nah, I feel great now. I'm actually all right to keep going.
No, not really. Because the reason how I just noticed was I just got to a rest day, just naturally hit a rest day. It suited to take the rest day. And I was just looking back to see when the last rest day was. And I think it was 5 or 6 weeks previous. Yeah. So again, it's just listening to the body, because the month before I probably had 4 or 5 rest days in the month. So again, with me, it just depends on what I have on. Different times of the year are really busy in work, and you do need to change your training to suit that.
Speaking of recovery and stuff, and you're talking about July, you're getting closer and closer to when you did the World Championships near the end of August. I could be wrong on this. You guys, you were over here for a couple of weeks back over in Ireland before heading over to Finland for the World Championships. Am I right in saying you were hitting like your fastest swims and stuff at this stage, so close to the World Championships? And if so, was there a period of tapering time? Do you believe in that towards the World Championships, or was it just like go to the week of, fly over there, get used to it, and Finland, get the body clock used to it, and away you go? Or what? How did you approach the last 3-4 weeks leading up to the World Championships?
I think with swimming, I made the mistake of easing off too much.
Oh,
unintentionally, but that's just the way it worked out. It was a bit of trial and error, because you want to recover, especially when you throw in like a travel over from Australia and then travel over from Ireland to Finland. Like, that's, it isn't quite a bit of travel so close to a race. So you want to make sure that you are recovering properly, but not losing the intensity. And yeah, like, swimming was going amazing, but then I need to swim consistently. Like, as soon as I take a break from swimming, I deteriorate very quickly. Whereas I could take a month off running and not see that much of a decline. But with swimming, I would decline very quickly. And I think when I got to Finland, yes, there was pools, but there were so many people who were there to swim, cycle, and run. So did get out for a few swims, but probably nothing quite at the intensity that I had been used to. So maybe that is something, looking back, I probably could have swum quicker had I not eased off as much. But then I think with the running and the cycling, it was probably pretty spot on, tapering it down. So not doing much volume, still doing a few hard efforts, and just going with feel. It was just all about feeling good in kind of the last 2 weeks.
Well, to be fair to you, Rachel, as well, like the swim was on a lake. So it was a big difference to what you'd been used to from pool to sea. And we done one lake swim here for just a test out of a try to, but the lake swim, I even noticed from here the difference between the pool, the sea, and when I get into the lake is about 12-15 seconds in the difference per 100. Now I am slow Joe as it stands, but even still, once I hit that lake, it is a little bit slower. Would you factor in maybe more lake training the next time, depending on where the next world's at?
Yes, because it will be a lake swim next time around as well. And I suppose that's the problem when you live like 10 minutes from beautiful ocean, is that when you do open water swim, it tends to be in the ocean, because I have to drive inland to get to a lake that is suitable for swimming. And then the pools as well. So lake swimming, you're just less buoyant. Even with the wetsuit, you are significantly less buoyant than in the ocean. And I think in my last triathlon season, like I did quite a number of races last season, and only one of them was outside of an ocean setting. Everything else was in the ocean. So I think that I definitely, if I was targeting a really big lake swim again, I would make the effort to travel to a lake that I could swim at and just feel that sort of less buoyancy, and really practice that side of it.
Yeah, no, it's good, and it's part of that visualization and getting that feel for what it's like. Because I know, look, I'm 13 weeks into swimming, and I noticed a huge difference from when I did a sea swim, and it just felt easier. I was less fatigued, and I went so much quicker, and it gave me great confidence because all I had was pool and lake. So I got the opposite effect of it, which was amazing. I got out of the water faster than I thought I would do. Whereas it's just something, in fairness to you, like I think you're being harsh on yourself, but I just think it was one of those things that the effort you'd put in would be probably the same you would have put in the sea. It's just the lake effect was what took away some of that time you were anticipating.
Yeah, and I suppose you kind of just think, oh, it's a body of water. Like how different can it be? But it is significant. And yeah, it's something I probably didn't think about too much. But look, that's how it is. We have to go with whatever the conditions are, whatever the water venue is. You just have to do that, and you have to factor that into training if you want to make those additional gains. So it's definitely something to consider going forward. Just try and vary it.
Speaking of how you're thinking and feeling before you got into the water, just you're there at the start of the race, World Championships, only so many Irish people doing this. Eric, your family and all were over there. Your fiance was there. The stadium, all like I saw that the thing you're running through the track and all. What's going through your mind before the start of a race like this? Was it just feel like another race? Did you have to calm yourself down into the race? Did you feel a bit like I get emotional at the start of Dublin Marathon along with 22,500 people, and all I did was just I'm in a lottery system already. I didn't do anything to earn this spot at the start of this race. What I'm saying, are you feeling any sort of pressure at the start of this race? At all, or do you feel like, okay, this is just another race? I believe in the work I've done, which is easier said than done, obviously. How are you feeling at the start?
You definitely try and not to feel that sort of pressure. Like you definitely try and block it out. Like it is just another race. What am I here to do? I'm just here to do another triathlon. But the emotion of the day, the excitement, you can hear the commentators. There's so many people around. But I did just say, don't try and find me. Like, I loved all the support. I really appreciated having all the support, but I was like, I don't want to see you beforehand. Don't come near me.
Fair.
And then I walk out to the run start and I see this massive banner with my face on it.
Oh
It's the
God.
only thing you could see. You couldn't miss it. Anyone looking at the if you go back and watch the highlights of the day, 14 minutes in, it's just my mother holding this banner.
Well, she's proud of fairness. Like Ironman, they make it a big spectacle. Like the finish line alone makes me something that I want to run with the red carpet, the big signs, everything else. And I'm assuming they go even more grandiose, whatever the word is, for like the start of the big screens and everything else. So I can imagine it's very hard just to go. It's not something you see before the start of a race, Kilcock, pretty much. So like it's something that's probably hard to like just treat as another race with everything else that's going on there, and the flags and stuff waving and everything else. I can only imagine trying to keep yourself in check for it was difficult.
It can be like, I loved the experience.
Mm.
Like, when you take the race out of it, it was a wonderful experience because of everything else that was going on and having people there from all over the world. I suppose the beauty with Ironman is that they do put on a show with all of their races, that you always have that amazing finish line running down the carpet. But this time you had all the world banners. At one point we had to run up and over a really steep bridge, and they just had it lined with all the flags. So it's like you're running through this almost archway. And then you have all the commentators, you have a stacked professional field as well. So there's just so much going on, that it can be easy to be distracted from your own race, but then it can also be really easy to get worked up and get drawn into it all and start panicking about your own race. And it's just trying to find that balance, that you're nervous because you care, but you're not nervous to the point where you can't function or, you can't focus on your own race. So
whatever pre-race feels you get, I'm sure by the time you got out to the lake, they're all gone. You're about to go on the bike. Eric's kind of hitting there. You're a bit harsh on yourself in terms of your swimming stuff. What is going through your mind before you go onto the bike here? Are you like, I need to make ground? Is that what we're getting at here? Or are you like, I just need to calm down, get in my own swing of things? Or like, how are you feeling getting out of the lake?
I felt really good. I felt really good in the lake. So maybe I didn't push myself near as much as I could have. But again, I don't know. I would have said it was really good. And I made the mistake of not looking at my watch. Because maybe if I'd looked at my watch, like, I still think I would have approached it with the same level of urgency, but maybe if I'd known the time, you never know if that would have sparked something else in me. But I could kind of tell by the reaction and the splits that were being shouted at me, or more the lack of splits that were being shouted at me, that I had a bit of work to do to catch up. But again, you need to realize that, people have different specialities. So while my run is my strongest, there are girls there whose swim is their strongest. And there are some insanely fast swimmers. So there's always going to be gaps from the start, even if I had swam what I wanted to swim, I still think there would have been gaps.
How hilly was the cycle?
More so than I imagined.
And the reason I'm asking that, and I haven't looked at this since the end of August, but I'm nearly positive it was 35, if not 35.7 kilometers an hour you held on average through 90K. Yes, that would sound about right. I have hit that going downhill in Kerry. That is fucking insane pace to hold for 90K. That is absolutely phenomenal. Like on a downhill, that's phenomenal. Let alone any sort of hills at all. Like you absolutely. Well, I don't know what to compare it to, but that sounds like you absolutely crushed the cycle. There was 750 meters of elevation, and again,
that's a lot of climbing.
Yeah, like it was much more than I think we thought. And even cycling the course, I cycled parts of the course in the days leading up to it. And yeah, it was hillier than we expected, but then what goes up must come down. And when you're finishing at roughly net zero, well, then it has to be an even split. I think the thing with the bike was the amount of people on the course. And like a lot of the professionals have done their stories, their take on the day, what their thoughts were for the 3 different disciplines. And the bike is definitely, there's definitely 2 sides to the bike story. There's the people who got out, had the clean air in front of them, weren't getting stuck in congestion. And then there were the people that were getting stuck in congestion at different parts. Because again, different categories started off at different times. So you could have started off behind a category that was could have been decent swimmers, but then really slow cyclists, or whatever way it went. People who are fast swimmers might not be fast cyclists. So you're not seated in that sense.
How are you?
And I get an awful lot of congestion in the back part of the course. And you're trying not to, even though the roads were closed off, I was trying not to pass over to the other side. And given what happened the next day with Lionel Sanders and things like that, I'm glad I made that decision, because every penalty tent I went past was just stacked with people. They were really pulling people up on drafting and then on crossing over, things like that. And there was times, like, I'd consider myself quite strong on the hills, but there was time you get up to hills and there'd be people 3 abreast across the road, and you're supposed to give them space, not cross over the other side, and yet try and get around them and maintain your speed, but they're going slower than you, and you're not supposed to go up behind them.
Rachel, can you explain that crossing over to the other side there? What like
the white line in the middle of the road?
You can't cross that at all, or can you cross that a couple of seconds to overtake someone? What's the rules there?
You're only supposed to do it if it's I think there's something about safety, unless you do it for a safety reason, you're not supposed to cross it at all.
So if someone's ahead, you can't get that close to draft or drift behind them. So I'm not great with that terminology in Ironman, but you can't. Eric's laughing head off me. Please jump in at any stage here, Eric, and help me out. But you can't go and not be behind them, and you can't overtake them either. So you're just stuck behind them, not too close behind them, because it's too easy for you.
No, you can overtake them, but you have to stay on, let's say in Finland, we had to stay on the right-hand side of the road. So you can use the entire right-hand side of the road.
Yeah, so the roads are closed, but they have a rule that you're not allowed to cross that line. You have to stay on the kind of rules of the road element, and you can't overtake on the sign. So it just keeps it even for everyone. So there's now descending wildly around corners and all that. It's predictable traffic. Then it also allows them to send traffic on the right-hand side of the road, because they know all the competitors are on the left-hand side. As in, if you have motorcycles with video cameras, emergency vehicles, anything of the course, they know that one side of the road is open. And that's how they're trying to ensure the safety. That's my logic behind what they're thinking of doing.
That makes sense now.
But when you are a competitor trying to get past cyclists 2 or 3 abreast, what do you do? And what Rachael referred to as Lionel Sanders, there was a part of the course, Rachel, you might allude to this part of the course, that had no road markings, and he overtook a competitor and was disqualified from the race.
For overtaking someone?
Where there was no road markings, and they said, well,
because he allegedly crossed over the imaginary center of the road line.
So this is a professional.
He got disqualified disqualified for overtaking someone that may or may not have passed an imaginary line in the middle of the road.
Yes,
something like that.
Yeah, and this is where a lot of it was called into question about it, because this is a guy with sponsors. This is a guy who's competing in the World Championships, who was doing really well at this time, and then you have an imaginary line messes up his day with a steward, who decided not to cross the imaginary line.
Rachel, you talked a second ago about penalty tents. What constitutes being put in a penalty tent, or do you get put in a penalty tent, or do you get time taken off? And what constitutes the level of, well, that was really like well out of bounds, you cross this line and you're automatically disqualified. Is there like do you have a yellow card, red card system, I suppose, to try and put it back into terms I understand a little bit more? Or like, is there what's the story of the penalty tent first, I suppose?
With the penalty tent, you have to stop and serve a time penalty. And the time penalties are either 30 seconds or 5 minutes.
And why was Sanders, like, was there a rule for that he should have got 30 seconds or 5 minutes? Or was this a rule that if you break this, you're got disqualified? Or what's the line here?
So him crossing the white line was a straight disqualification.
Should have been. Like, if you blatantly cross the white line, is that in the rules? You get disqualification, like, or is it very vague on what constitutes disqualification, what constitutes 30 seconds, what constitutes 5 minutes in the tent?
They do have it laid out. Like, you can get a red card, which is the straight disqualification, and you can get 3 blue cards, which are 5-minute penalties, but 3 blue cards is a DQ. And then you get, I don't even know the color. Is it a yellow card? Is a 30-second penalty? But things like if you're cycling along and your water bottle comes loose and you drop it on the ground, like accidentally, it's considered littering. So you could get a 5-minute penalty for that. So I can just...
Sean,
that happened to Kerry, and I almost went over the bike because someone else did that. I should have gave him a 5-minute penalty. And that's...
And drafting. So because you get an advantage if you're in the slipstream of someone else and cycling directly behind them, if you're not keeping the specified distance,
what's the distance?
You can get it's 12. Well, they don't even really say. They say 6 bike lengths, which is roughly
6 bike lengths,
12 meters.
So you would say, I'm trying to imagine in my head if that's a lot or a little in a race going that fast. Is that a little?
It's about 2. If you think of your road markings, the white lines in the middle of the road, it's roughly 2 of those, of the long ones, the long white road markings.
Did you struggle with passing people out because of these things?
Yeah, because when you have a whole lot of people coming up behind other people, so my category is, we were started behind a lot of the older categories, and I suppose my category and maybe the category below me are traditionally the quickest categories, and we were started right down the back, and so
Why?
we're constantly I reckon it's so that they kind of don't, I reckon they kind of predict what the slowest time is going to be.
Well, are you saying your wave is done by age and gender, as opposed to what you would have done in Western Australia?
No, Western Australia was self-seeded based on your swim time.
Okay, no, but I mean like that your time coming first and that didn't come into account of where you're putting the wave for the World Championships. You're just putting gender and age, that's it.
And then whatever color hat they gave you, you had to start with all of them. And
so, Sean, to give some background, so like ahead of Rachael by 10 minutes was the 80 to 85 category headed off. So they've kind of said, right, the professionals will go, and then it was like the 80-year-olds went, and then it was the 50 to 60. So they kind of said, okay, it's going to take us X amount of time to start everyone. So like the 18-year-olds, so Rachael was, well, I'd say probably 10, 12K into her bike by the time the 18-year-old category started. So if you were to start the 80 to 85 category last, that's going to be a day for everyone, your volunteers, your staff. So from an organizational perspective, they said, well, if they're going to take this long, they have a 2-hour head start on the last competitors, and then they'll finish 2 hours after the last competitor. So we should have everything wrapped up by X time. So that is why they're thinking.
That's like starting the walkers and wave 4 the Dublin Marathon at 7:00 in the morning.
Yep. Yeah, that's the way it is, and that's what Rachael would have had to swim through people, and would have had to cycle through people, and probably by the end of the cycle, Rachael, was pretty straightforward. You'd kind of found your level maybe you did pass a hell of a lot of people on that run, but by the time you got there after the first probably 5K, you're back with your own level. Probably too late though.
Was it a confidence builder taking over people, or was this just an annoyance?
It was kind of both. I suppose I was a bit further back getting out of the water than I planned. And like, you were going to be overtaken. Like, I have to overtake people anyway on a normal day because I am a relatively slow swimmer. So overtaking people is fine because I'm just used to it. I think it was the amount of people I had never experienced before, plus where I came up behind the groups. So I think 5-10 minutes either side could have made a difference, because one section, I think my speed, if you look at my Strava, drops off around the 50-kilometer mark. And from memory, that was quite narrow roads. And that's where I met an awful lot of congestion in terms of I caught big groups of people around that point. The first 30K was like pretty smooth sailing. Still quite a lot of congestion, but I was able to get around it. But over the back section, there were some hills I came to that I had to just slam the brakes on and just sit up because there was no space to overtake because it was so grouped together. And that's kind of why the penalty tents were pretty packed, because you can't be packed together. You can't be grouped up like that. So people who are sitting behind other people were getting time penalties.
What are you supposed to do instead?
Just
go slower.
Clip your left foot and kick them over. That's
I did an awful lot of shouting at people to get out of my way and keep over to the right. Because then you have people who are inexperienced, who are cycling on the left hand, like in the middle of the road when there's no one inside them. And you're not supposed to overtake them on the inside. I'm not sure if there is a rule about that, but you're not supposed to overtake on the inside. You have to overtake on the outside. And if they're cycling out in the middle of the lane or over the other side, it was just
at this
messy.
level, though. I don't understand how there's. I know this is on your second race, but I don't understand how there's this happening at the World Championships. I can understand if this was happening in Cork or where Eric's going to be in a couple of weeks' time. Absolutely no offense, Eric, but at the absolute elite level World Championships once a year, how is there an experience in this level of congestion? I'm not understanding that at all.
Well, I think it's because it is an amateur sport. So if you're not going as a professional, you do have to pay your own way there.
Oh, you can still just pay for this experience?
No, yeah. You have to qualify, but then you pay for the privilege.
Oh, yeah, you pay for the privilege to go to World Championships.
But you have to qualify still?
Yeah.
You still have to qualify.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, if you qualify, I mean, it's not like I can go, well, Jesus, I'd like to do my first one in the world.
Okay, but here's how it works.
Right.
I suppose you have to consider that different age groups, different times. You already have this massive time range as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then if, say, I was to have done a second race and I would have qualified in a second race, and I obviously wouldn't take the position because I already had the position, the next person down is offered the position. Because at the end of the day, it is money making. The more spots they fill, the more money. So I probably paid €700 just for my entry into this race.
It's a phenomenal business, Ironman. It is a phenomenal business.
So and you can imagine,
like when you put the big
they're
stage
not going
there,
to be fussy. They're not going to be that fussy. If you don't want it, the second person doesn't want it, the third person doesn't want it, they will just open it up and be like,
until someone takes it.
That's why I am gonna do Ironman somewhere.
This is like, wasn't there a swim event recently where they had someone that had to just to fill a spot for their team, that had to jump into a swim or a relay that was like so much slower than the other country? Oh, well,
yes, there was
the relay actually had to like take her time hopping over. What am I thinking of?
Eric the Eel in the Olympics.
No, not just Eric the Eel. No, more recently.
No. There was a Belgian. the European Team Championships recently. One of the Belgian athletes, if they wanted their team after all of this, they were one event short for points, and they would have been DQ'd if no one did the last event. And their shot putter went in and did the 100-meter hurdles.
I just took one for the team, like, and
She was incredible.
And it is like that thing where you always want like an amateur in that professional level just to see where you'd actually be compared to everyone else. And like probably shot putter probably did a lot faster than we'd ever do, but still, like it was just mad. But this sounds like this happens in the Ironman. Like you said, at the end of the day, it is a business. I suppose
it's a business.
Moving on from that, still did phenomenal in the cycle despite all those obstacles. You're coming near the end of the cycle. You're ready for what is your main event. And I wasn't there, but I was watching it on the phone. This is where you really start climbing up the ranks. And it looks like from the phone and the text and every time refreshing, you are just picking people off one by one to get up the thing. When you got to this run stage, you're on clipping, getting yourself ready, were you like, here we go now, this is my element? Or how are you feeling?
I'm always feeling pretty okay again. I get to the run. I would have liked to have done a clicker on the amount of people I passed because nobody passed me on the run.
I'd well believe that, considering your pace.
But it was way tougher than I thought as well.
Oh.
The first 2 kilometers were uphill and up a really steep hill. And I was really struggling to hold any sort of pace. And then from about the 9.5K mark up to the finish was a complete uphill drag as well. So that would have been another 1.5 kilometers, maybe 2 kilometer drag. So when you're finishing the first lap and then going out onto the second lap, you climb for maybe a mile. Then you turn onto the track and you do a lap of the flat track. And then you have a really steep descent out of the track. And then you're just climbing again for about 2, maybe 3 kilometers.
It's funny you should say that because I do remember looking at it. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I do remember seeing around 3-4K, you dropped to near a 4-minute pace or something. I'm like, oh, she's found her groove, not knowing you went up mad uphill and we're still doing I know you're looking at it there, maybe a 4:10, 4:15, 4:20 pace or something stupidly insane.
Yeah, average 4:20, but it went like I started off pretty quick, like a 4-minute K, and then it dropped to like 4:16 going up the hill.
Yeah, that's the part I saw.
We hit the 5th kilometer was at 3:47 because it was a really nice downhill. But then on the flat section, they threw in a few kickers. So you were kind of going up just a really short, steep hill and then descending again. And then you finally got a bit of flat section. I think 6 to 8Ks on each lap. So it was 2 laps, so roughly 10K per lap. And about the 6 to the 8.5 kilometer on each lap was actually flat. But the rest was either up or down or some combination of both.
All right, there's no penalty markers here. There's no white line in the middle. You were just overtaking people and just getting as quick as you can towards that finish line. That must have been a great feeling.
Yeah, it was. Again, it was probably, I was happy with the run. I don't think I could have ran much quicker, especially given the hill. But yeah, I suppose when you get to the run, it's always like, right, the quicker I go, the sooner this is over, the sooner the pain is over.
A lot of pain at this stage. Any niggles, any pain at this stage? Or were you feeling good? Just keep motoring on?
No, the run was all good. Can't complain with how it went. And in fairness, like they had, I think 3 aid stations. Was 6 aid stations per lap, because the women's race on the Saturday, we had quite warm temperatures for the run versus the men who were rained out of it on the Sunday. And like you needed all that extra water, and they were providing all the gels, all the Coke, the Gatorade. You know, they really looked after us well on the run.
You drinking Coke in the run at this stage?
Yeah.
Yeah, just any calories I'll get into the stage, just bang, there you go. Phenomenal.
So looking at to give a perspective, so we obviously, Rachel, and this is the one thing about Ironman, it's mad because we see a start and then it's just a load of heads going off into the distance in the water, and then you're like, oh, okay, we'll walk to the out, and then you're trying to guess, is that their wetsuit? Is that their head? So you know roughly what time you're expecting, but you don't know. And then you see them get out and it's all go and they head off on the bike, and then it's like, right, well, what we do for 2 hours now? And then so we're all watching you on the app and getting the splits and seeing how you're going. And that was probably one of the best parts of it, was to watch. So when you started on the bike, you were looking at 91st out of the water in your age category. And we were like, oh, she has a lot of work to do. And then we could just see you climb. And even though you were getting congested and stuff, we could just see you climb in the numbers. I was like, oh, top 50. And yeah, we were getting all excited. I think you finished 91st in the swim overall. In the cycle then, it was 34th overall, which shows the number of places you climbed. And I think you did get off the bike in around that 29th, 31st place. And then to watch you do the run then was even more exciting, because the kilometers clicked by quicker, the markers clicked by quicker, so we could see your pace increasing, and we were doing the maths. If she keeps going at this pace, she's gonna catch. We were so hateful. I won't say the words, that bugger. Poor woman, it was just doing her best. We were like, bugger. But overall, to show how strong your run was, you finished 12th out of the 250 or so women of your age group over that distance, which was phenomenal.
Class.
So it's absolutely amazing figures. It's amazing to watch, and like the difference in your time and 10th place is about 1.5 minutes. So it's absolutely amazing, the margins and how close they are. And it just shows you what is possible. This is only your second one, and I know we're getting into the weeds of how did this go, how did that go, how did your run go, but to just be your second ever 70.3 and to be within those minutes of top 10 in the world in your age category is absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you. Like, it was an unreal experience overall. Like, you can be, I think, you know this, and Sean, you know from running as well, that no matter what race you finish, you're always like, oh, could I have done this? Or, how could I do better? But I think when you look at the whole experience and everything from the expo and like dropping your bike and gear off to picking it up, and it was just the sheer numbers was just insane. And just the whole experience was really worth it.
Crossing that finish line, was it relief? Was it pride, emotion? Was it thinking, could have done this here, could have done this there? Like, as you cross that finish, and we talked already about the big stage and stuff that's involved in it, what was the first thing, can you remember, that was going through your mind at that stage? Or was it, I just need food right now?
Probably relief.
Relief.
Months and months of hard work, and I had managed to make it to the finish line. I think in the moment, I was definitely happy. Like, I did cross with a smile on my face. I really felt like in the moment, like throughout the race, the moments throughout, I don't think there was much I could have changed in the then and there. Like, in hindsight, there is so much I would have done differently and so many different ways I would have attacked it. But I think finishing, there was nothing that was in my head going, like, I'm so disappointed with that part, or I wish I had done this. My emotions finishing were, yeah, look, I've achieved this. I really feel like I gave it a good, really solid effort. And I feel like I was hungry for more. It definitely didn't make me, it didn't give me any negative emotions. It was like, okay, what can we do next?
Do you qualify now automatically for the next Worlds, or what is next? Do you qualify again?
Gotta try and qualify again. That'll be the goal.
So what's next? What's the next big race? You're out of triathlon season. Actually, you're only in triathlon season. Yeah, you're only going into it now.
That was another thing. I hadn't raced since the end of April.
Right.
So I think one of the big things I would change doing it again is fitting in more races and more long distance races. Because aside from maybe 2 running races, I did not do any sort of racing from the end of April until the end of August. Whereas all the Europeans and the Americans and everyone living in the Northern Hemisphere had been racing since April. And I was very rusty. Like in hindsight, there was some aspects that I was rusty on just from lack of racing. But next year, it's in December. It's in New Zealand. So it's time for us Aussies to have, or us people living down here, Aussies, Kiwis, South Africans, us people living in the Southern Hemisphere will have the kind of run in. Our season will only be kicking off. There'll be races for us to do. And everyone in the Northern Hemisphere will be buckling down for winter with not much going on.
Sounds like he'll be waving the Australian flag next year in December in New Zealand. That's going to the finish line. We won't take offense now on the podcast.
It'll still be the Irish flag. That's actually something I would have loved. I would have loved if my number had an Irish flag beside my name, because like I obviously had the best support on the day. There's no doubt about that. But there were other Irish people around, and you could see Irish flags. And like, you know, the Irish are the best supporters in the world. If there had been a little flag or something, either on my jersey or on my number, I reckon my support would have just been through the roof.
Does that mean you're going to wear a green tri-suit now next December?
Maybe.
With a bit of shamrock on it or something.
Yeah.
The Irish do travel well, so.
No, yeah. It's absolutely phenomenal. And there was great support for everyone on the day, but you did notice the flags of the Irish going around and cheering and having a good time. It was great to be a spectator, and it was a phenomenal spectator. I never thought, for not seeing Rachael compete for so long in different parts, it was actually phenomenally entertaining as a spectator. For this event, it was absolutely brilliant. I'm glad Rachael paid for it because I enjoyed it. But yeah, like there's a good opportunity for improvement there, and it is in New Zealand the next time round. So I suppose there's less travel, Rachael. There's more opportunities to train and race in the lead up to it, and it's exciting. It's exciting to see where you're going to go. It's absolutely brilliant. It was great to watch you on that day as well. It's it is absolutely brilliant and phenomenal achievement for only your second ever 70.3.
Thank you. And next year I'll actually be one of the ages listed in my age category, which will be nice. 30 to 34, and I'm still 29. But that's a grievance for another day.
To bring this full circle, talking about the very start of this podcast, we were gloating about the few little runs myself and Eric have done and you have not done. What kind of toll did this take on your body? Because I know you haven't done much in the last 4 weeks. I know you've done your casual cycles and stuff. You don't log on to Strava, but what kind of toll did the Ironman take on your body? And when do you see yourself getting back into the swing of things with training again, as you train, not just the rest of us?
Well, anyone who trains knows that you constantly ache or pick up a needle or something feels not right. And definitely I had never trained as hard in my life. I'd never put as many sessions back to back or consistent weeks. I don't really think I'd ever been feeling as fit. So I definitely just needed the time to just absorb the load, just to stop, just to let my body recover, let things sort themselves out. And I'll start building back up and including more strength as I build back up. I think probably 3 weeks now without doing much. Plan is to get back into it next week and just incorporate that strength so that I feel like I have gone a next level up, but I need to make sure that everything goes up in that level, because if you're not balancing your prehab and your strength and prepping your body for it, your body's not going to take the load. So that will be the plan. I don't actually have any races. I'm not entered into anything for the foreseeable future, but there are a load on the cards. This week was just about survival, getting back into work after a beautiful month at home, a month in Europe. So this week was just getting back into work and surviving, getting over jet lag. And now that I've ticked that one off, I can sit down, plan the season, and I think just pick races that I'm going to be excited about. Because if you're excited for it, it's easy to put the work in. You know, you're motivated because you want to do well at it. So that's where we're going to go and just see what's out there.
Pass.
I wouldn't know if I'd call the feeling I have for this Ironman excitement. But yeah, I'm going training now because I have to, or I might die. So there's the carrot and there is the stick method to the Ironman experience.
Complete different ends of the spectrum. And on that bombshell, Rachael, absolutely congrats. Unbelievable achievement. Eric, get running. Get cycling, get swimming, get doing something now. We're going to wrap up the podcast so you can do all those things, get a good training weekend ahead of you. Guys, thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of the Any Given Monday podcast. Rachael, thank you for gracing us with your presence again in the podcast. Eric, that's it from the south. Eric and Rachael, take care.
Bye.
Bye.